Sausage.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the podcast, which now has an official name. I am Deathwitch, your host, the AAA-hole, and this is the AAA-hole podcast. As always, I have my co-host with me, Ozzy, the Ozzy. Say hey to everybody, Ozzy.
Hey, everybody.
My wife is, of course, also joining us. She will be representing the casual gamer as she games casually. And Phelan is a guest star for today's episode. Say hey to everybody, Phelan.
Hello.
Coming to you live from the beautiful state of Washington. In case anybody didn't know, Ozzy's in Australia. So we're going to start the day off by talking about Destiny again. But this time I'm more focused on their monetization system. So I'm going to pass this question off to you, Ozzy, as I couldn't get you to play with me last night. So what would Destiny have to do or change with its monetization system? How would the game have to change to bring you back?
It's not really a case of the monetization. It's more of a case of I've got to see that it's going to actually be stable.
Okay, yeah, and
the
that's
rug isn't going to be pulled out from under everyone.
Well, that's basically what I'm asking is how would it have to change? How would, like, are you talking gameplay element wise, or like how would the game's economy and the game itself have to change to make you feel it's worth your investment again?
I don't really know at this point. As with everyone else, it's basically we're just trying to get acquainted to the new system, new environment, the new state of where the game and the industry is at.
Well, for the moment, they are mapped out for roughly the next year.
Yeah, but the question is, will that actually stay? How will they fund? These are the questions that really need to be asked. Okay, it's good to see that they've actually split and they have this roadmap, but they haven't exactly told us how they're going to work it, what they're going to do to fund, how they're going to monetize, what sort of other forms of storytelling / DLC they're going to bring in. There's still so many unanswered questions.
There is.
And it's really those sort of questions that need to be asked and answered before I think most people will be happy to actually come back.
I think it's more a mixture of content and monetization. I mean, everybody's honestly right now. Most of the talk is where is the monetization going. I'm more interested in the content because I don't see the monetization changing for the time being. I think they should focus more on content, and I see it going radically different. Like, I see the game getting a reboot of sorts. Sort of the way that Warframe did. Where they just completely revamped the system. Because now Bungie has that freedom as a developer to do what they want without any deadlines, and that's another thing. Like, now that they don't have to answer to Activision's, tight schedule and their deadlines, what's an appropriate length that you would be willing to wait for an update? Like, if they took their time and they were going to really revamp things, so you knew that, all right, next update ain't going to be for a while, but it'll drastically change things when it comes. Like, how far is too far out for you to be like, not worth my investment to, keep playing the game and wait for that?
I would probably be thinking that they're going to run this year out and then put out whatever Borderlands 3 is.
I mean, Destiny 3.
Destiny 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. that they'll put that out as it, and that's going to be their new start. They'll run out what they're contractually obligated to.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying is once they
ditch and burn.
Yeah, once they reach that point though, starting after that point, like how long would you be willing to wait for that first big update where they change things? Where
I don't know if they were smart. If they were smart and actually preempt everything, so probably put something other in E3 or Gamescom or PAX East or something around towards the end of the next year. So they basically showed this is Destiny 3, this is what we're going to do. And if it looks good, yeah, I would probably jump on it.
Which brings me to my last and final question for you before I move on to the contrast from the casual gamer's point of view. But that's, what would have to change? Like, what would look good? What's the ideal system? Now that they don't have to, build everything around monetization, now that they don't have to abide by an Activision Blizzard, tight deadline schedule, now that they can take their time and they can do their vision, what would be the ideal system to make you feel engaged, get that sense of progress, to keep you grinding away at it? Because I mean, we all agree that it's not there yet. I mean, there's plenty of content and stuff to do now and stuff to grind, but it's far from perfect. So what would make it perfect?
Would possibly say for them to, as a big opening, do the deep dive into the actual system. This is what we're planning for at least the next year. This is the content. This is how we're going to monetize. This is how you acquire new sparrows, new pieces of cosmetic armor. Just lay all the cards on the table straight away.
Oh, of course.
Show everyone that this isn't Activision anymore. That's what they need to do day one of the showing, is basically separate them in every way from what has been known as the Activision symptom within Destiny.
The curse that is Activision. All right. So we're gonna turn it now to my wife, who is a casual gamer. She is the one who spends, zero time keeping up with gaming news. She's your average casual gamer. Doesn't watch any gaming news videos. Doesn't keep up with any gaming news sites. She turns a game on. She wants to play a game. She turns the game off. She's done with the game. Most of her, the advertisement that's given to her about video games is done in those respective video game stores. She learns about most of her games through browsing the eShop, or browsing the PlayStation Store, browsing Steam, etc., or from word of mouth. So she's their target audience. She's the one they're advertising to, because she's not gonna quote unquote fact check it. She's just gonna look into it and play the game, and all of these things that make everyone else mad may not even affect her. She may not even notice. And it's people like that are the ones that are the reason why these practices continue. They're the ones that people go, well, who's buying this stuff? Why is it? They're the ones buying it. So, getting her perspective, how would the game have to change for you, as someone who picks it up occasionally, to keep you interested and keep you playing longer?
I mean, like you said, I only play casually because I don't have time to sit down and do all this grinding shit. Like, I can't. I don't have the time. I've got things to do, got children, all that stuff. And so, when
Has she said anything?
when I play, I would just like to see. I feel like I don't get anywhere. Like I don't get a lot of the gear and stuff that you guys do.
All right, so that's what I'm asking is like, what do you wish worked differently in the game than works now?
I mean, I don't get a lot of the gear you guys do because I don't have time to sit there and grind it. Like, it would be nice to get a little, I get it, I don't have time to sit there, but could I get a little something for the little bit of time that I do have? Because half the time I don't get anything. Crappy stuff.
All right, so what she's saying is an easier way to get loot while leveling, but then you still have to address how the hardcore players don't run out of content because they have the time to keep playing. My idea is I'm trying to think of a way to appease both audiences, and my idea is to just completely redo the progression system in Destiny entirely. I'm setting monetization aside for the time being and saying that they need to redo everything. And by that I mean everything. And I don't know if you do that with a massive update to Destiny 2 or you just build a sequel from the ground up based around this new system. But I think the way that you could get that sense of progression, even for a newcomer who doesn't have time to sit there and try to grind an RNG system, is remove a lot of the RNG from the progression system and save that just for loot. So basically don't make your progression system 100% about loot. The skill trees that they have for the different powers are severely lackluster. Like, I would love to see a more Diablo-esque style skill tree where you can have different builds per class. So
something more customizable, so
yeah,
you can do be a ranged dealer that also has some form of healing.
Yeah, I want to see
use one or the other.
I want to see more focus on the powers themselves instead of it being, pick your super and it'll affect your grenade and your super, and for the most part, it doesn't matter what class you pick. Other than how you jump and occasionally throwing a grenade and using a super, every class is basically the same. I want to see more customization on it. I want to see more powers. I think they should lean heavily into a more RPG-like skill tree and just lean heavily into the use of powers so that each class feels dramatically different. Maybe even make some more classes.
Would you then be happy with maybe less guns?
I wouldn't say less guns. I think you should still keep the loot because that's a big part of Destiny, and that's what keeps games like Diablo going. But I think the focus in that should shift from progression to end game. So your progression for someone like my wife who plays occasionally, for her to still feel that sense of aggression while she's leveling to reach that level cap, and I'm not just talking about the level cap, but the light level cap. Like, they need to find a better way to balance those instead of having, all right, you've reached the level cap and now everything is all based on your gear. They need to have a better way to balance it so that while she's reaching that new highest light level, she's doing it by improving the skills she already has, and then the guns and the loot are considered sort of in-game. After you've maxed out your RPG skill tree and you've fine-tuned your build so it's perfect, now you're just tweaking the gear to fit your playstyle.
Yeah, I could do without, honestly.
Hold on.
I could honestly do without as many of the guns and stuff. Like, if there was more to the powers, to the to the supers, because that does annoy me a little bit. That, alright, I've got my super, and now what? What does it change if I pick this one over this, or if I do this or that? It doesn't really change much, like you said, except for how your grenades act and whatnot. But it's kind of boring.
Yeah, and see that's what I mean by leaving the guns to end game. So you spend the majority of your game time when you're leveling and you're reaching that new light level cap. You spend the majority of that time perfecting a build, finding the right power set that fits your playstyle, and perfecting that build and leveling them up, and fine-tuning those RPG elements of the game. And then you start focusing on the loot and finding loot that A, fits your playstyle, and B, complements the power set you've chosen. That's another thing, is I want to see guns that were buffed if you were using a power set that complemented the gun. For instance, if you were using if you were using an auto rifle in your second slot that's void based, and then your power set was you picked a void based power set, obviously that should make the gun stronger. They should feed off of one another.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do more of a Diablo tier-esque sort of thing.
Yeah, like if you're gonna focus, like, they shouldn't be 100% like Borderlands where they're all focused on guns, but they shouldn't be 100% like Diablo where they're all focused on just replaying and replaying and replaying until you've maxed out a build. If you're going to do this combination of the two, where you've got this love child of Diablo and Borderlands, then lean all the way into it. Don't just kind of dip your toes in each pool. Just dive in head first and just come out as this beast that's all its own. Drop the loot boxes entirely. I think that they should... Because you've really got a combination of about 3 games here. You've got a combination of, Borderlands with its a billion guns loot system. You've got the combination of Diablo with its RPG elements and classes at the moment, and you've got kind of the Halo multiplayer feel to it as well. So you've got that crowd to contend to. So I think the way you do that is without splitting them up, because you want to keep them all the same. I think what you do is you focus progression on the Diablo portion of things, where you're building out a class. You focus the end game, the raids and whatnot, on that sweet specific loot that just further maximizes your character after you've fine-tuned your build class. And then you focus your PvP portion as... It should have its own gear, I think. PvP specific gear that'll make you better in PvP, or, earn your cosmetics in PvP. Maybe not your own specific gear, but, gear that doesn't affect the gameplay should be in the PvP portion. So that's where you would buy your battle pass. I don't want to focus like all of the microtransactions just in the PvP portion, because then that portion of the community is going to feel like they've been targeted, but you could have multiple ways to monetize in the same game. So there's people who are here for PvP, have a monetization system that's just for them, so that they can get the progression and they can feel as if, they're getting stuff that's exclusive to their portion of the game. And that's, so I think a battle pass type system works great there. So they've got basically their own skill tree to fill out after buying a battle pass system, where they're leveling up and they're getting their own levels and they're getting their own cosmetics. Then you've got then have a cosmetic shop that just straight up sells cosmetics. No loot boxes, no bullshit, just cosmetics. So, like, oh, I want this shader, I bought this shader kind of deal. And then you've got monetization for both. So we're really just going to sit here and act like this streamer didn't... What? Okay. And thank you. I know my mustache is fantastic. I need to shave it. I think that's how they should fix it. I am curious to see like where it goes going forward, though, because I feel like the way that we're getting our content now is 100% Activision. Because a lot of this content feels like because a lot of this content feels like it should have been all one update or all one expansion. And then, they finished it. They finished an expansion. They submit it to Activision, and Activision goes, Well, that's too much content for one expansion. Why don't we cut that up into 3 and sell a season pass instead? And bam, then that maps out their, their lifespan, that triples the lifespan of the players there, because you can say, oh, we've got 3 DLC packs coming in the next year instead of just this one massive one, and you get to charge 3 times the price. So I think we're going to see a lot less of that. And I think that if they do stick with the expansion model, that's another thing. If you do the monetization, where it's the battle pass system, where it's the cosmetic shop, where you're specifically buying, sparrows, and you're buying ships, and you're buying, shaders and all those cosmetics, and then you've got the battle pass so people in PvP can earn exclusive cosmetics that are exclusive to the PvP battle pass, so they've got their reasons to quote unquote get good at PvP. Then you can't sell expansion packs, I don't feel. Like, I don't think you can double dip. Like, either you're going to keep the game monetized and alive with regular updates on a tighter, regular expansions on a tighter schedule that keep the monetization in the game that way, or you do free updates, but those updates may come slower because now they're going to take their time and they're going to put quality into them. They're going to be more bug fix updates. They're going to be more, of that kind of update, and then like Warframe does, where it does a bunch of little small updates, that fix bugs and do, add, rotate it out, gear and stuff. And then they do
testing, and then the big update.
Yeah, and then they do their big massive one where they add a new open world thing, or they add some more story content, or whatever it is that they're gonna ask. And the jar you were asking about there, Andre, is the Streamlabs tip jar. So when you drop some when you drop some bits in the stream, and you want to say you're enjoying the podcast, you want to drop some bits, you want to drop a donation, boom, you get a nice little animation of it dropping right there. You get to fill my little tip jar. It's looking kind of pathetic over there, so feel free to make it rain. No, but that's what I think should happen. And I don't know if I'd copy, because that kind of annoys me with Warframe. I don't know if I'd copy the idea of rotating out the cosmetics in the sense that they become vaulted and then you sell these. Like that's probably the thing I like the least about Warframe, is them opening the vault and then selling these ridiculously overpriced packs to buy cosmetics that were vaulted. Just creating this arbitrary system where it's only rare because they made it rare,
Yeah, but that also feeds into the game's non-monetized economy as well. Well,
I wouldn't hate it if it weren't so ridiculously overpriced. Like in Warframe, it's just ridiculously overpriced because I find myself interested in a lot of those Prime packs. But then I look at them and I'm like, $80 fucking. It's like my nutsack. I'm not paying $80 for one character. That's ridiculous. I don't care how pretty it is.
Yeah, most of that is due to that they're also putting platinum in there, which is the in-game economy.
Yeah, but you still kind of lock people into
really, they should be taking that out.
Yeah, and I mean, you're really kind of locking people into... That's just a way to justify your oversized price tag, is by saying, oh, well, true, you're spending $80, but you're getting, $20 in in-game currency to buy more stuff with. And I'm like, well, what if I didn't want to spend that much money? Yeah, but it's what if I didn't want all that?
It's all about 50 on the in-game economy, where they should just, in my opinion, just take that out and just give us what we're actually there to get, which is the prime frame, the prime weapons.
It's all just a way to sell, to squeeze that little bit more money out of it. It's the part I like the least about the two things I don't like about Warframe, that if Destiny 2 is going to follow in the footsteps of Warframe, it should at least learn from Warframe's mistakes at the same time. And the two things I hate the least about Warframe are the prime vaulting system and the we've opened the vault and look, these things are expensive. Just these overpriced fucking things that they throw at you that are only rare and hard to get because they made them rare and hard to get. It's it's a shameful method of manipulation, and it's one of the few things that they do that I really wish they'd stop doing, because as much pride as they take in, they're not doing loot boxes and they're not doing all the other shitty things that the AAA industry is doing, but then they do that thing. And then the second one is the fact that they straight up sell gear. Like gear that affects the gameplay. They straight up sell guns, they straight up sell warframes, they straight up sell the things you need to progress in the game. So you can buy your progression, basically.
If you want.
Yeah, but I don't think you should have that option at all. There shouldn't be a if you want. You shouldn't be able to do that. And I definitely would hate to see Destiny straight up sell guns and straight up sell armor sets, or straight up sell, you know, light levels, or, you know, progression through a skill tree.
Hi, Rocket Vibes.
What's up, Rocket Vibes? Welcome to the AAA-hole podcast. I am your AAA-hole, and you have caught me mid-rant, sir. Go ahead, guys. I'll let you talk for a second.
Fallon?
Nope.
You got anything?
You started to say something there.
I'm good.
I mean, the stuff when Warframe does open the vault, like the stuff they sell is it's the beefed up version of stuff that's already there usually, and it's usually pretty. It's usually pretty, but that's another thing. Don't cater to whales. I don't want to see that happen. Like that just. Yeah, it gets you money from the whales, but it leaves a bad look for literally every other player. Like, you're hampering the experience of every other player.
It doesn't really come off that way.
It does to me.
Well,
and I'm not the only one. I've talked to other people who are like, I hate the fact that if Jim Sterling's even done videos on it, and it's gotten better now, but Jim Sterling felt the same way. He's done videos on it where he's just, I hate the vault. It's the worst part of the game. It's gotten better, but it's still overpriced, and it's still
get for free.
No, I'm not saying you should get it for free.
No, you can get everything that comes out of the vault for free.
Yeah,
you don't have to buy it.
Well, not everything. The cosmetic stuff you can't, and I'm glad they separated it and made the cosmetic stuff separate, so that you can buy just the cosmetic stuff.
You can get those technically for
free because of their in-game trading system. No, I'm talking about stuff that's built into the game, not an economy the players made themselves with trading. I'm talking about the stuff that's just built into the game itself.
Yeah.
Stuff that's always there, so you don't have to rely on another player generous enough to share with you, but you can log into the game store and it's just always available for everybody all the time. And that's not. The cosmetics aren't. It's great that they included a trading system, but honestly, I think the vault just needs to be either scrapped or reworked to where it's more reasonably priced. Like, my number one gripe with it is the price. Just the prices of that stuff is ridiculous.
Hit it on the head. They need to take the extra plat out.
Yeah, take the plat out and just lower.
That'll drop the price down to the main big one, which includes the warframe and the weapons, should be at most $40 to $50 tops.
That's pushing it for me. I'd say 20. Like,
yeah,
I mean, because
still too high.
Yeah, because when you boil it down, you're still selling one character in a game with one set of guns. If they did that if literally any other game did that, there'd be fucking headlines on Polygon, on Kotaku, on IGN, on everywhere. You know, oh, the Division is selling one character class or one fucking character for $50. You know, if any other company did it, and I feel like they're just taking advantage of the good merit they have of their customers by doing that. Because they have a good reputation and a good rapport with their customers, and I feel like they're milking that with the Prime Vault. Yeah. Because if that same system existed in an Activision game, if that same system existed in an EA game, people would lose their fucking minds. And that's the way that you have to look at it. You have to separate the game it's in from what it is and say, is this acceptable? And if you put it in any other game, no, it's not. So then, by that logic, it should also not be acceptable here. And that's how you keep shit fair. And I think that's what Destiny needs to do is to especially now that they're going to be under a microscope, is to walk that line and say that they need to focus 100% on the players. And if you keep things fair, you don't focus on whales, you don't focus on milking anybody, but you focus on keeping your community as happy as possible, they'll be more than happy to open that wallet for you. You know, scratch their back and they're going to scratch yours. Like, that's how you keep the game afloat. That's how this happens.
Alright.
So, anyway, that's my Destiny 2 rant. We will be playing that after the podcast here.
What's the next topic?
Video game movies.
What?
Ooh, video game movies.
Because I want to know what
Nice.
everyone thinks of Sonic. And how creepy that poster is.
What poster?
I have
Oh,
not
creepy
seen it.
as creepy.
Oh, you haven't
as-
seen... Hold on. I'm going to put that up on
Once
screen
again,
for
I'm an
everyone
average person,
for everyone watching
so
the
no,
video
I
version
have
of
not.
the podcast. My wife hasn't seen this yet, so you guys... Hold on. We are going to pull up Sonic
Let me
movie
get you
Try
up.
not
poster.
to get any sleep.
Nightmare
I have
fuel.
to turn you up. 'Cause,
Oh, it's
yeah,
Nightmare Fuel.
I watch you at 160p.
All right, so this is it. Oh, let me. Can I just get? Jesus Christ! Can I just get a full version of the picture, please? Nope, that's not it. Why?
I didn't even know they were making a Sonic movie.
Oh no, that's a. How do I see the picture bigger? God damn you, Google. Okay, there we go. All right, so there it is. Let me pull this up for everybody.
Is it?
All right, so there's your Sonic the Hedgehog. So what everyone's freaking out about is this is the movie, but this is all right. First, it's from the producers of Fast and the Furious
Oh,
to
yeah.
begin
No,
with.
it's just a silhouette.
It's you. I
I
don't think
got
the
one in
picture's
the-
doing it justice, but you
I got
gotta
one in the
you gotta
chat for it.
you gotta see it at its full resolution. It's
Oh.
his arms and his legs and how he looks more human than Hedgehog, and specifically naked.
Yeah.
He looks very naked.
Yeah,
It's
it's in
just-
the general for Discord.
Like, why does he have so human-esque features? Is this gonna be like so many questions arise from looking at this picture? Like, is this a CG movie, or is this one of those deals where they do like live action and then mix in some CG, like Detective Pikachu did?
I would
What am I looking
possibly
at here?
think it's going to be a Detective Pikachu thing.
Where they mix Sonic with
From what
people,
I'm
and that's why he looks
Yeah, I
Yes.
was gonna say, is it
Yes.
gonna be like live action?
like that's all we have to go on.
'Cause
That's a
if it
bad poster.
It's gonna be live action. It looks creepy.
That's a bad reveal.
I mean, I love Sonic the
Yep,
Hedgehog.
a flop.
Yeah, him being naked.
Or maybe he'll be moving so fast in the movie you won't even notice.
I mean,
You won't know
he
he's
does, like, if you hold your hand over just his head, does that... It looks like a naked boy, doesn't
naked.
it?
Yeah.
That does look like a naked boy.
I have
With
not seen
sneakers
Naked
on.
Boy, so I don't know what that looks like.
That looks like a child's body.
Also uploading a picture from IMDb that shows the sheriff station of Green Hills, and yeah, that's looking totally live action.
Yeah,
Alright.
Ozzy
Where are you
uploaded
throwing this at?
Looks.
General.
Not very
Discord
good.
General.
Discord General. Okay. Let's... That... Oh, let me open original here. That could be... That could be live action? I mean, it could be... That could be CGI. No, not until you look at the
The sheriff
window.
station.
Not until you look at the window
that-
Looks live action.
and see the reflection
That
in
is
the,
live
in the
action,
window.
yeah.
That's a real...
Yeah, that's right.
See, that right there looked like... that part right there, the Hollywood North. No, that's the website, isn't it? 'Cause it's got a .buzz
Yeah.
under. Okay, so
That's
that's something else that somebody else added.
That
Like there were parts of
that's
it
a
that looked like
watermark.
that could have been CG, but then you see the reflection, and I think if anyone were gonna do a CG reflection of vehicles on the window of the sheriff's office, they're not gonna include some guy's trash in the back of his pickup
No.
truck. So I'm like, okay, so that's where I'm going. Okay, so yeah, that's live action.
And yeah, as I said, that's straight from the IMDb page, so this is somewhat accurate.
Yeah, this is gonna be a dumpster fire. Oh God,
Oh.
why does Sega keep doing this? Like,
Okay. Now we move on to the. We'll agree. Sonic the Hedgehog is going to be one of those video game movies. Now
Yeah.
the question is, what is a good video game movie? And I think we all have to start off with the obvious one everyone brings up with when we talk good video game based movies, and that is Mortal Kombat.
I agree.
good goes in
The
quotation
original
marks there.
Mortal
Good
Kombat.
goes in quotation marks there. Is that movie? Yeah, the original, not Annihilation, because that one's god awful. But the original,
Oh, yeah.
and good goes in quotation marks there because that movie is very much a product of its time.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't hold up now, but
yeah,
held
it
up.
doesn't hold up now. And B, they took a lot of liberties with the script on that. But
Yeah.
it's based on a game that already had such a nonsensical story and lore at the time. Now they fleshed it out now, but at
have
the
a story.
yeah, but it was so vague and even the lore didn't make sense. Like it was just one of those people were just happy to see the characters on screen. Like I think that's the only reason this one became the exception to the rule and worked. Is because you picked something that made it kind of did a Super Mario Brothers but in the right way. Cuz Super Mario Brothers movie did the same thing. There's not much of a story there. You're going to make a movie out of it. You could literally go in 100 different directions that would still make sense. They chose none of
They went
those.
in the worst.
Yeah, they chose none of those. Mortal Kombat chose one that worked. It doesn't line up with the games now. That's one of the reasons that it just doesn't hold up at all. The movie itself isn't great to watch. It was fun when you were a kid to see Mortal Kombat at its height and to see all those characters from that game you weren't supposed to play on screen in PG-13 for some reason.
Does
From
the new
this,
Tomb Raider movie count?
yeah, I mean it's a video game movie. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Bad.
The new Tomb Raider movie?
Yeah, the one that just
Oh
came
yeah,
out.
the one with the
No, we did not.
I can't
what
pronounce
was
her
it?
name.
Deus Ex was the last one with the creepy robot.
I can't remember.
It was pretty decent. It wasn't bad.
So my question is, what would make a video game movie good? Like, how do you do it properly? Since this seems to be so hard for them to figure out, how do you do it properly? Now, I mean, Sonic is obviously we're just gonna set that one aside. But I mean, if you're gonna do something like, I'm gonna go with the obvious example of Uncharted because we've recently had an Uncharted fan film that I felt came pretty close. It had the right idea. It was far from perfect. But it gave you a foundation and gave you that glimmer of hope that, hey, this can be done right.
Yeah.
For starters, the movie has to be based on a game with an actual story.
Yep. And
There is-
casting has to be nailed.
You can have. There is virtually no difference between a movie and a full-length cutscene. So what you basically have to do is take this game, remove basically the game part out of it, and just focus on what is the story here.
Well-
For Uncharted, you're having Nathan Drake do Indiana Jones stuff. You don't have to spend a half an hour on each little different time he shoots a gun.
All right, well, what you have to do...
That's not the focus of the story.
I think that when making a movie is you have to do more than just that. Is you have to... I feel like you have to find a way... Because remember, they're not just trying to make this for us. This is one of those... We want everyone to watch it, and this includes people who've never played the game. So you have to find a way to introduce them into the world, make them love the character the way you love the character, and, you know, basically bring him to life on screen. So you still have to tell that part of the backstory and flesh him out as a character, while also telling a story. And I feel like you can't tell the exact same story from the game, because then all the gamers are going to be mad because they've already seen that exact same story. You have to do
half the point, that
version of it.
They shouldn't be making the...
You can make the same argument.
Yeah, but where you take your liberties is... Alright, using Uncharted as an example. Yeah, you could do the one-for-one with the cutscenes. And basically make that into a live-action movie. You can't cut the gameplay parts out entirely, because a lot of the story and the characterization of the characters and that kind of thing is told through the gameplay. So the cutscenes just get to focus on the good stuff. So you have to...
You don't have to do every shot, every...
Right.
Every fight scene.
Well, that's where they drop. That's where they drop the ball. Is they focus on the wrong parts of the gameplay. Like, for instance, in a game like Uncharted, they focus. You know, they would focus on nothing but the gunplay. To whereas there's a lot of dialogue in the gameplay that fills out the characterization. There's a lot of other stuff that, you know, lets you get to know Nathan Drake as a character. And if you leave that out of the movie, anyone who doesn't already know who he is and who doesn't already play the games misses out on all of that. And that's how these movies start to fall flat on their face. The old Tomb Raider movies, for example, are, you know, prime example. You threw a big name star in it and you focused on nothing but the gunplay and you pushed real hard on the tomb raiding part without explaining who Lara Croft was, any of her backstory. You didn't flesh her out as a character at all. It was all about, you know, fan service for, you know, for Angelina Jolie fans and for video game fans. And just, it was horrible.
Yep. You can't just cast somebody because they're
popular
in movie star at the time. You just can't do that. Just because she had a ponytail doesn't make her Lara Croft.
Yeah, I mean, even if you even if you cast Nathan Fillion from the fan film as Nathan Drake, which, by the way, perfect casting. He should be him. He fucking nailed it. But that was a 10-minute fan film. The only way you make that work over an hour and a half, 2 hour long feature-length film is there's going to have to be parts where he's not quipping and gunfighting. Yeah, we've seen him quip and gunfight, and he can nail that, but you can't do that for 2 solid hours. So you have to flesh him out as a character, and that's where they should look more towards like the Marvel television series. Like, get the guys who write Daredevil to write the fucking Uncharted movie, because they know how to take a character and slowly evolve him into what he is in a way that doesn't feel forced.
To get away from Uncharted, another movie I reckon would be perfect for a live action adaptation would be one that's already been talked about, that they were looking at it, and that's Mass Effect.
Mass Effect's one of those that has to be a trilogy, though. Like, there's way too much story in one. But that's one of those. That's another good example, though. That's one of those massive universe games where you're not just telling one story. Like, you've got to flesh out an entire new universe here. And if they don't start slow, the problem is you have to start slow and you have to introduce people to that entire universe in the same way that the original Star Wars did for Star Wars. That's That's a hard one to pull off.
Now, thinking with the Mass Effect movie, you could just basically follow Shepard's journey. You don't need to go down all the different side paths that end really nowhere.
No, you don't have to go down all the side paths.
A little bit of lore,
but what you do have to do is you have to introduce people to all these locations, to all these alien races and whatnot. Because if you just have them pop up on screen, you know, people are going to be like, what? You're going to confuse people. And that's what the original Star Wars did well. It didn't... I'm talking about the original, not the one that George Lucas went and touched up. And I'm talking about the original ones. Because it did a real good job of slowly introducing you to all of that. They didn't just throw you into, okay, now he's going to Endor. Okay, now he's going to this. He went to like one place, and then it was after the Empire. That's it. He didn't even leave his planet. He didn't go to other planets. He didn't, travel the universe. He met one small group of characters, and they kept it tight-knit and small, but still gave you enough in the background. And there was enough name-dropping of other places and lore building that they could expand in a sequel. So for the first Mass Effect movie, you have to do that. You have to address everything without drowning out the story itself.
Here's actually the better question. Would it be better to do the movie or make it an actual series? TV series? Because with the TV series, you could get into that level of detail.
My thing with it being a series is...
I don't know if the Orville can do it.
Yeah, but the Orville had the Orville's kind of an outlier because, I mean, the new Star Trek show sucked. So it's not easy to pull off even for an established brand.
I think the Star Trek movie sucked for many, many reasons, and the story was the least of the matter.
Oh, the story was a big part of it. Like, I watched season 1 of that, and it was god-awful. I wanted it to be good. I'm a Star Trek fan. I wanted to like that show. But they turned it into The Walking Dead in space. It's a drama now. And that's... I mean, yeah, Star Trek's always been kind of a drama, but a lighthearted one. And that's what the Orville did, and that's why it worked, because it was an homage to something that was already established. And I guess you could do that with a video game television show, but the problem is you're paying an homage to a video game with a television show. So most of your audience just browsing through Netflix who stumble across it aren't going to be familiar with that foundation. Everyone's familiar with Star Trek, which is why the Orville worked.
But what you're saying there also lies in with what has been said about the comic book series that have been coming out. That, yeah, people aren't familiar with it. They're not going to really look at it. But it turned out, as long as you put out a good series that gets actually... gets people talking about it, people will actually look at it and
that brings me back to speaking of Marvel and their series, I mean that brings me back to
I was actually more referring to the Arrowverse, but
yeah, but I mean I'm using Marvel as an example since we're talking movies, but I mean that just brings me back to the whole you have to build up to it. You can't just rush into it. That's the cardinal sin that DC's made over and over again. Marvel didn't start with these, like far corners of their library characters like Guardians of the Galaxy. Nobody knew who Guardians were. People had at least heard of Iron Man and Captain America. They started with ones that people had at least heard of.
I knew all of the Guardians.
And yeah, you did, but I'm talking like your average person. Like, people who don't read comics still knew who Iron Man was. People who don't read comics still knew who Captain America was. So they built with you have to have that foundation if you're going to do that homage. That's why the Orville works, because everybody already knows what Star Trek is. If you're going to try to do that with a video game where you're just paying an homage to a video game with a television show, yeah, the fans of the video game are going to love it, but that doesn't get you enough... That doesn't work for television, because you need more than just the video game fans to make back the money you're going to spend making this thing.
Yes, that's why you actually make it good. So those people tell their friends, who tell their friends, and that's how these things actually build.
Yeah, you just gotta make it so...
And to that point, I say it didn't work for Firefly.
No, Firefly didn't work because Fox messed the entire thing up from day one.
I mean, that was another one of those television shows though, that didn't have a lot of advertisement. It didn't have a lot of hype around it. It was done, like you said, where they made it good, and he told his friends, and he told his friends, and he told his friends, but it still wasn't enough. And I agree that they should make...
That took years to actually take because it wasn't on a service where people had ready access to it.
Right.
So it took years. It took till the DVDs came out for people to actually get it, watch it, and fall in love with it. Nowadays, with Netflix or Amazon or whatever other streaming service you've got, you have that ready access. So you put it out, and yeah, probably the fans will be the only ones who actually look at it first. But if they start praising it, then their friends who may not be into the series will jump on and say, okay, this is actually quite good.
This is what I think the secret ingredient is that they're all missing. The reason why The Walking Dead worked so well, and the reason why the Marvel movies worked so well, and others have failed, is that's not a Hollywood adaptation of Captain America. It's not a Hollywood adaptation of Iron Man, and The Walking Dead wasn't a Hollywood adaptation of the comic. Those were all examples of the original writers of the original material they're based on being involved in the creation of the movie or the television show.
People don't want to see adaptations of certain things. They want to see
what they
I
know.
want to see adaptations of certain things. It's like my favorite book series. They did a TV show. I hated it because they didn't follow it. They didn't follow the books. They messed up the characters. They didn't look the way they were supposed to look. The story wasn't the way it was supposed to be. And I hated it. People that didn't read the books loved it. But I hated it because I've read every single book. I have favorite characters. I have favorite classes of character. And when you mess all that up, the people like me who read all that stuff, it's just, they don't want to see it.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the video games, is finding that way to walk that line where those people who don't know anything about it can still be included and not feel lost and still love it. And the people who are fans of it can feel as if it's close enough to keep them happy. That's what the Marvel movies did. And granted, theirs was out of necessity. They had to change a lot of the stories from the comics that we all wanted to see, like Civil War, for example, because they didn't have the rights to the rest of the characters that were involved in Civil War. They couldn't use the X-Men. They couldn't use any of the Fox stuff. And they had to fight to get Spider-Man in there. So they changed a lot of that story, but they did it in a way that still worked. They still hit all the main basic plot points of Civil War. They still got the point across that the original story was trying to get across, but they had to do kind of this remixed version of it that made it work with what they had. Because Civil War in the comics, I mean, it was more than just the Avengers fighting each other. I mean, the Fantastic Four was involved, X-Men were involved. That was everybody at Marvel, Deadpool, everybody. And it was vastly different from the movie, but the movie couldn't use Deadpool, couldn't use the X-Men. They didn't have the rights to the Fantastic Four. There were like a good half of the characters from the comic it's based on, they didn't even have the ability to use. So still had to find a way to make it work.
But it's also why you have to have a story, a good story that goes with it, because the people who don't know the characters, they can still get into it and follow along. That's why Harry Potter did so good, because no, I didn't read all the books or the movies, but I could still follow along. I didn't need to read all the to know what was going on.
Well, that's why I say that the missing ingredient is having somebody from the original writing cast of whatever you're basing your movie on that's involved, because you basically bring them in, and I think that's the middle ground, because that's why the Halo was supposed to have a movie a long time ago, and the reason it didn't happen is because that pendulum swung too far the other way, where Bungie actually wrote a Bible for Halo that had to this had to be followed if you were making a movie, or you can't make the movie. And they basically just gave that to a studio to make the movie, and they kept wanting to change stuff, because Bungie, as good as they are at making video games and cutscenes, they aren't filmmakers. They aren't movie directors. So there's probably some stuff that was in their little Bible for Halo and how that had to be done that wouldn't translate well to the screen. So the movie studio was like, well, we could still do that, but we have to do it this way. And Bungie was like, no, the Halo Bible is a Halo Bible. You follow it or you don't make it. And they didn't fucking make it. But you also can't have the writers not involved at all, to where you basically just buy their license and you end up with Super Mario Brothers, where they just bought the name and wrote up, or Resident Evil, where they just bought the name and gave you a movie that had nothing to do with the game at all. I think the answer is you bring in writers who wrote the original story, you sit them down at a table with a set of other writers who are familiar with, with film and not video games, and you say, okay, if you had to rewrite this story for the screen instead of for the console, how would you do it? And basically let the original writers of whatever game it was rewrite the same story if they were writing it as a movie instead of as a game. So they can be involved in those decisions that says, okay, well, this part of the story worked well as a gameplay element, but it wouldn't work well on the screen, so let's change it to this. And then they can be involved, and that's how you make it work. That's exactly how The Walking Dead worked. And they had to change a lot from the comics just due to, actors wanting to quit and, the shit happening, They had to call audibles here and there. But the original writer from the comic was involved, still is. So and that's how he described it, is he basically used the television show as a way to rewrite the comics. He said, there's a lot of stuff I changed for the television show, which was my way of correcting the comics. Because he's like, there was a lot of stuff I did in the comic I regret doing. So when I redid the TV show, when I redid that same story for a TV show, I used it as my do-over. To tell the same story, but to take out the parts I wasn't so happy with. And redo them the better way. Because, we've all had those times where we've done something, we've turned it in and it's been over, and then a week later, you're like, oh shoot, I could have had him do this instead of that and it would have been better. Damn it. But it's too late. It's already on the page now. Well, he used it as a do-over. I think they should take that same approach to making movies for video games. Bring in the original writers and let them use it as their do-over. So they can tell you the same story you already saw in a video game, but you basically get a director's cut version, if you will, where you get to see the version that they feel is the best. Because they got to change the parts that they later had second thoughts about, that they didn't like, that didn't work so well. Sort of a bug fix for a plot line, if you will. Nobody got a comment?
I agree. Bring in the people who actually know what the story is, and then give them people to help. Okay, this is the sort of things you can do, this is the sort of things you can't do. Remember, you're dealing with actual people on a stage set. So there are limitations to what the universe can actually do.
Well, when it comes to a movie like Sonic, and I mean that works for your story-based movies, but when it comes to movies like Sonic, You know, if you're going to take Sonic and make it into a movie, you're going to take Mario, make it into a movie, you're going to take the Rabbids and make them into a movie. I think the only way to make that work is A, CG. Just those things are so far out there that I don't feel they would work. That even if you did them with live action, you'd have to supplement that live action with so much CG that you might as well just go full CG at that point. Instead of trying to make Sonic look like a person so he fits into our world, they need to just go, you know,
make another
super
animated Sonic movie.
Yeah, but make it in CG and such high quality that Sonic looks more similar to Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy than he does to this person wearing a Sonic suit. You know? Make him like that and give it to just imagine a whole movie with that level of CG in it, and then fuck the story. Because Sonic's story is so far all over the place to the point that you just write a new one just for the movie and make it for kids. That's how you make Sonic popular again. That's how you give him this resurgence that he needs. Yeah, quit trying to cater to the existing fans, because that fan base has been through enough as it is. You're not going to bring them back with a movie anyway. Focus on making new fans and give him a reboot in the form of a movie that focuses on kids, so you can make a whole new generation of Sonic fans and give yourself that mulligan where you get to do over, where you get to have a whole new generation of Sonic fans that became Sonic fans because they saw a movie, and then you start making games targeted at them instead of games that try to stick to what already is. Because at this point, you ran Sonic so far into the ground, I don't think there's any pull him out. All of the games are hit or miss. The one good one you've had over the last 10 years wasn't even made by you, it was made by their fans. So at this point, just try to make Lightning Strike twice, and remember how you got all those fans in the first place? Just do it again with a new generation of kids. Turn Sonic into a kids movie, make it PG. Try to get a bunch of kids thinking Sonic's cool, and then you make games that follow the art design and the lore of the movie. Don't make a Sonic the movie the game, but make games that follow that rebooted plotline and flush out all of those shitty characters you just kept throwing in to try to make Sonic cool, to try to bring people back.
Oh, so you're saying not to bring in the female bat with the
actually don't
large...
mind her, but don't bring in, you know, fucking Big the Cat, Cream and Cheese, and all these other fucking ones that they had. Yeah, that just had ridiculous names and were just so goofy and off the wall that they just didn't need to exist. Where you're just farting out Sonic characters left and right. Just get rid of all those. Stick with the core cast. You know, have your Sonic, have your Tails, have your iconic Sonic characters that need to exist. Amy, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Rouge. Yeah. Get maybe Shadow or Silver. I say one, but not both. It's too many goddamn hedgehogs. Maybe Shadow, because at this point, I don't get rid of Shadow.
As far away from 06 as we possibly can.
Yeah, just get rid of Shadow and Silver too. Just get rid of both of them. You don't need a bunch of other hedgehogs in there. Get rid of all the extra characters they added for Sonic Chaotix. Get rid of all that. Yes, your chat is visible. I'm in the middle of a podcast. Give me just a second. I see you. I see you, though, undergraduate gamer. I see you. Welcome to the podcast. We're almost done here, but we'll be taking those viewer-requested comments at the end. But get rid of all the characters you added for Chaotix. Get rid of all the characters you added for all those fucking spin-off games. You know, just there's so many I can't even name them. Like, they added a whole new set of characters just for the Sonic arcade game. Then they added a whole new set of characters for Knuckles' spin-off game. And then they added, you know, a whole new set of characters for the animated show that they made back in the 90s. And then they had to bring those characters into the games to the point where it's just ridiculous. Oh, then they added new characters for the comic book. And then they had to bring those into the game. Is too many now. Flush all that shit down the toilet. Use the movie as a reboot. Focus it on kids. And when you start making your new games, base those new games off this new plot line and this new universe you've built with the movie, and forget about everything else that came before. Forget about Edgelord, Shadow the Hedgehog. Forget about future, Silver the Hedgehog. Forget about the Boom universe entirely. Forget about all that. Whatever you do to reboot it, stick with that story and just keep it going, so that you've got a movie that tells a story, games that continue said story, and then lead into another movie. And you build a whole new franchise for a whole new generation. That's how you make lightning strike twice with Sonic.
Everything. Don't have Sonic make out with a human.
Oh god.
Yeah, that was in a Sonic game. Sonic made out with a human. In their defense, that was in the original script for the original Sonic the Hedgehog. He was originally supposed to have a human girlfriend. And it was
dropped for a reason.
Oh, that reason was super stupid. It was dropped because... Nope, it was only dropped because they didn't have the power on those older consoles to render a human the same height as Sonic that didn't look ridiculous. So they always planned to bring her back. They didn't drop it because they thought it was creepy. They dropped it because they were like, we don't know how to make humans that don't look weird. Look at Eggman. He's Eggman.
Okay.
Why does she have to be the same height, though? I guess she has to be a normal human, and he's what he is. If you're gonna be that creepy anyway.
Well, she had to be the same height as him back on the Genesis days, because the way those levels were built in those old 16-bit days, that if you made Sonic that big on screen, and then you made a human this big, she'd look like a fucking giant.
Oh.
So she'd have to be the same size. Nowadays, you can make him look like, he's 4 feet tall, and her look like she's 5 whatever, and it'll make sense. But way back on the Genesis and Sonic 1 days, if you made Sonic waist height, so basically take Sonic's height, double it so he's half the size of the screen, that would be the size of your female.
Oh.
That's why they didn't do it, because it would look weird. Not look creepy, look weird graphics wise. That's the only reason that they canceled and scrapped it. But anyway, that puts us
for the creepy.
Yeah, but now keep it out for the creepy. No, I think they should stick with nothing but anthropomorphic animals everywhere. There shouldn't be any humans in the Sonic universe at all if you're going to reboot it. Just make except for Eggman, basically just do this thing where, there's other humans, but you never show them. You only show Eggman.
Something.
What's that?
There's a new video game based series coming out on Netflix shortly, later this month. Carmen Sandiego.
That's not really a video game based series.
And it's a video game. It's a series based on a video game. Carmen Sandiego with a video game based in
I don't think it was a video game
back in the 90s.
I thought it was.
It's also been a series before too.
Yeah, it's also been a series before too. But is the video game based on the series, or was the original series based on the game?
No,
I also thought it
was based on the game.
I also thought it was originally just a set of books before it ever became a video game. Even.
Yeah, I thought it was books first. Too.
Yeah, it was books first, so it's still not a video game. It's a property that's been turned into a lot of things, but I think it originally just started as books.
We could all be wrong.
We could all be wrong. We could all have absolutely no idea what the fuck we're talking about, because I was never a fan.
Yeah, I was watching the trailer for it the other day, and it actually looks quite interesting.
Well, the series worked the first time. But I think that's why. But I think that's why it worked, is because I don't think it was originally a video game. I think it was kind of like a Where's Waldo thing, where it started as a book and then they made it into a video game, and then Where's Waldo turned into everything else. But, you know, it's the same thing where it started as a book and then they made it into a video game for children and then they made it into a cartoon for children. So that's what Sonic should do. He doesn't stop trying to mature him and go after a mature audience. Make him focus on a new generation of kids and just basically modernize him for that generation of kids, so that he doesn't seem like he's been pulled out of the 90s every time you see him and feel out of place. You know, have him run around with a smartphone using smartphone apps and shit. Just modernize him. Start over. Reboot the damn thing. Focus on children so that he fits in with the children of today. And then you make a whole new generation of fans and make Lightning Strike twice. I think they're focusing on the wrong shit.
Just looking up the wiki for the character, and they are... The wiki is basically saying the game was the first in the franchise.
Oh, okay. Again, we all have no idea what the fuck we were talking about.
Oh yeah,
it's the game in school, and that was the first thing. I think the TV show did come later.
I never played the games. I always saw the TV show, and I could have sworn they were books, but I don't know. Like I said, I could be wrong.
Yeah, they had the game.
All right, well, that puts us in over an hour, and we got to play some Destiny 2. So everybody, thank you for listening to the AAA-hole podcast. I wasn't as angry tonight as I thought I was going to be, but don't worry, that's all coming, because the AAA industry has turned me into an a-hole. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Catching up on Twitch chat. For those of you who are watching live, we do take viewer comments at the end. If you don't watch live and you're listening to the podcast via, iTunes or wherever you downloaded it from, you can still be part of this viewer comment section by sending your viewer comments or your listener comments to deathwitch@gmail.com, or by jumping in the stream and being part of the live broadcast. That works as well. So what do we got here? People want a Last of Us movie. Do we need a Last of Us movie?
No.
I mean, the game... I feel the game was so perfect that a movie might not do it justice. That and this, it's not so much that The Last of Us wouldn't make a good movie. It's just that I don't feel like we need another zombie movie. Or another zombie anything at this point. The Walking Dead has kind of beat that into the ground. I feel like The Last of Us needs a sequel. Needs another game. But as a movie, it would feel like just another zombie movie. To where I don't think it would still have that same emotional weight as a movie that it has as a game. Because as a game, you're controlling a character, you already feel an attachment to that character due to the fact that you're physically moving them around. And you lose that in a movie. And I feel like after, what are we on, 9 seasons of The Walking Dead, people don't feel emotion when they see people die from zombies anymore. Not when you see it in live action. Like, every trick in the book has been used at this point. It was great in a game because it hadn't been done that well in a game ever, which is why Last of Us worked, but I don't think it would work as a movie. Not as well as everyone thinks it would. Like, even if you did it perfectly, I still feel like it would still fail at the box office because people would just go, hey, it was Walking Dead the movie. They'd just be, nothing new here. I mean, I guess the new part is different kinds of zombies. They had the clickers and, the different kinds of zombies, and I guess technically it's a fungus, not a virus, but other than that, same shit you've already seen in a movie before. So I feel it's better as a game because you develop an emotional attachment to the characters in the game because you're physically moving them around. You're projecting yourself onto them in a game, where in a movie, you're just an observer. I think that's the connection that gets lost in plot lines or stories like The Last of Us, which is probably a reason why a lot of the video game movies fail, because the writers don't understand video games, so they don't understand that part of the connection with player and character, and that gets lost in translation when going to a movie because you don't have that connection to the character as an observer that you would have as a player. And that's why movies need to go that extra effort to first emotionally invest you in the character before making that character go through what it went through in the video game. And they never really do that in video game movies. They just throw you into it. Which, for fans of the video game, fine. But, for those people who just saw the trailer and thought it looked cool, never played the game, they've got no attachment to those characters, and if you don't spend time in the movie giving them a reason to be attached, they're not going to care. You're going to lose all that in translation. Yeah, so I don't think The Last of Us would work too well as a movie.
All right.
Not that it couldn't. Not that it couldn't, but I don't think it would. Yeah, that's where we're going to end the podcast, though. Going through the comments here, I don't really see anything else we didn't already cover just as part of our conversation. So thank you, everybody, for listening to the third episode of the AAA-hole podcast. We will probably be recording these on Monday from now on, as my work schedule has changed, and I'm getting off a little too late on Sunday nights, but I'm off Monday and Tuesday, so we will be recording these if you want to catch them live. Monday nights at midnight is when the recording goes live. If you're going to subscribe and catch them in audio format to take me with you on your commute to work or your morning jog or whatever, those will be published Wednesday at some point in time during the day. I haven't really set a time. It's whenever I get around to it. So, catch it Thursday morning then. Definitely by Thursday morning. But I'm trying to get them midweek. Wednesday is trying to be my upload day, but trying to find the time to edit and get stuff uploaded is kind of hard at the moment. I'm still working out a schedule. You can send your ideas to me. You can @me on Twitter, or you can email me directly at deathwitch@gmail.com if you want to remain anonymous with any of your comments or be part of it. And if you make some artwork, by the way, we're still looking for some artwork for the channel, for the podcast. So if you make some artwork I end up using as my cover art or as part of the live stream itself for the people watching on YouTube or on the live stream, you will not only get a free game on Steam, but you'll get your name in the credits and a shout out during every episode as the creditor of our official podcast artist. So thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next week. Say bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.